Hoping to focus on a lauded police initiative tracking down the country's most wanted, Police Chief Myron Demkew couldn't escape lingering questions about his officers' conduct.
Quite frankly, I think we owe it to everybody to do everything we possibly can to prevent these kinds of things from happening again.
As Umar Zameer was acquitted Sunday for killing a Toronto police officer back in 2021, scrutiny shifted to 3 officers who testified at trial that Zameer had run over Constable Jeffrey Northrup with his car deliberately. The trial judge warned the jury the officers may have lied or colluded, and even the initial bail judge called the Crown's case against Zameer weak.
I can't fathom how the Crown attorney, with all that information, still proceeded to go ahead with the trial.
Don Valley East Councillor John Burnside, who's a former police officer and up until last week was on the Police Service Board, is one of many still fuming over the trial.
I can't understand how the Crown attorney would have access to all the physical evidence and the testimony, or what the testimony will be for the officers at the trial, wasn't better prepared and didn't pull back or do something so that this debacle didn't occur.
Did your officers lie on the stand, and was there any collusion?
Well, again, it's completely inappropriate for me to comment on that at this stage.
So much turmoil over the trial, Toronto's police chief has called in the OPP to investigate his officers' conduct.
When I asked for a review, I asked for it to be done by an external agency and be independent of us, really, truly in the hopes of, providing some comfort that, we're moving towards rebuilding trust by examining the circumstances and doing so in an independent way.
I think it's fair to say that what we are seeing come out of this case calls for more than just a review by another police force, but some form of more robust, independent review of what transpired.
The Canadian Civil Liberties Association concerned about pressure from police investigating police, just as it was concerned how political pressure factored into the trial moving forward in the first place.
There is a close relationship between the Crown and the police. And in this case, it's conceivable that there might have been perceived or actual pressure by the police on the Crown to proceed with the prosecution.
We believe this was an intentional and deliberate act.
Pressure that came not just from the police, but also political leaders, including the Premier, who called Zameer's release on bail in 2021 incomprehensible and unacceptable.
At that time, I had limited information. The courts have decided, the jury decided, and you have to respect the justice system.
I don't think that the Crown attorney will make decisions based on public pressure.
Michael Korstein is now a defense lawyer, but he was a Crown attorney for nearly a decade.
Do you think if you were the Crown in this case, you would have gone forward with a trial, first-degree murder trial?
That's entirely impossible for me to say.
He says in Ontario, Crown attorneys proceeding with a trial consider their own argument and not as much potential defenses or the credibility of witnesses.
Maybe there's too big of a gap between the Crown decision to proceed on certain cases, at least as far as an orthodox application of the reasonable prospect of conviction, versus the very high threshold to almost a near certainty to prove a case beyond a reasonable doubt. And maybe it's that particular threshold that does put too many cases in the system.
And amid all the frustrations with this case,
We were hoping for a different outcome.
the chief forced to clear up mounting frustration over his dismay on Sunday with the not guilty verdict.
Closure does not come at the expense of justice. And let me be crystal clear. I support and accept the verdict of the jury.
He says he's committed to restoring faith in his officers, and the chief hopes the investigation stemming from the trial will help too. Chris Glover, CBC News, Toronto.